So for today's video, what I wanted to do was report on some posts and stuff heading to the PvE or just in general going around, the likes of Azir's gameplay update, a little bit of information about Urgot and Evelynn's reworks coming up, as well as a little bit of a teaser, you could call it, for a new champion, what implies the new champion might be able to do, whether it's an ability or a thematic. And I'll first start with Azir, if you don't know, Azir is scheduled for a little bit of a mini rework, the likes of Rek'Sai or something, so they can finally get him into a state where they could balance him without him having to be either super weak or super strong and oppressive. So the post by Medler kind of reads a little bit like this, or as Medler mentioned, I should say. In a recent Ask Riot, we are currently exploring different update directions for our beloved Streamer Emperor. We're still very early into the process, but I want to communicate what our main goals are and the different paths we are considering to achieve. So the goals we want to achieve with this update are to increase opponent play options when playing against Azir, increase Azir's live ranked performance, which is a buff, and preserve his core play pattern of summoning sand soldiers and using them as his auto attacks. Because one of the major problems right now with Azir that some people feel, whether it's developers or players, is Azir does a lot without having a lot of weaknesses, right? Like Azir looks like he's supposed to be a range poke champion. Their weakness is supposed to be hard engage, but if you try to hard engage on Azir, he'll just hit you with his ultimate and knock you away. Meanwhile, because he can also dash to his soldiers, he can also kind of go into the front line, use that same ultimate to kind of like CC some people and like knock them into something else, combo it with like a Jarvan or a Gnar, and Azir kind of just does a lot without really great glaring weak points, and that's part of what they want to solve with this update. So, each of the following directions seek to increase options when playing against Azir, but makes its own trade-offs. So there's two major directions. One, reduce Azir's soldier command range, exposing him to more opponent damage and CC opportunities when he is dealing damage. So his range would be decently long, short by maybe 15%, and is likely what they would aim for. It affords his mobility profile to remain similar on live, however, and it might mean he needs some more on-demand survivability. Is the direction that reduces the most pressure on us to drastically change functionality on his current spells, which might require some decent changes depending on what we discover though. Meanwhile, the second direction is to keep Azir's live soldier command range but reduce his mobility profile so he is more easily killed when you do have the tools to gap close to him. Pretty much, affords soldiers longer lasting when they currently do, so I believe right now they last like 8 seconds, they could last even longer. Mostly this will mean they have to remove the ability for him to drift or dash to his soldiers, and this is the direction that restricts Azir to be even more of a backliner than anything else. So regardless of our choice and direction, we will most likely be buffing Azir's sand soldiers' stab damage and overall DPS potential. At the same time, we want to also look at ways to ensure his landing phase is less oppressive when his numbers are tuned up. A decently successful mechanic we have tested so far a bit is reducing his Sand Soldier's AoE damage early game and then scaling it back up to 100% by champion level. This would allow Azir to still have a threatening single target damage throughout the match, but less wave clear early on in the game. And again, they're still very early into this project, but feedback around these directions and what you would like most about the current Azir would be very helpful in helping them determine what, they kind of want to preserve and go forward with in the development. At the end of the day, we want to deliver an Azir that is exciting at his current form and to current players and potential new ones that doesn't warp around the meta game himself and is fairly tuned for the average player. I will try to be here as often to answer questions throughout this week as well. So that's pretty much most of the information about the Azir update. I'll talk more about Azir heading into, later points in the video, but let's also talk about, Urgot. And right before Urgot, let me also talk a little bit about Aatrox. I know he's been on a lot of people's radar, surprisingly. And when he was released, a lot of people went to pick him and were super excited to try him out on the Rift. And unfortunately, though, the promise of what Aatrox art and theme was never really kind of delivered. So they kind of want to do some changes to Aatrox, even more so than I believe it was like 7.5 or so going forwards, because generally the class updates are not over, but they right now want to focus more on individual champions that really need help. So I'm going to actually jump to Urgot, and we can talk more about this stuff a bit later. But Urgot, with Urgot getting closer to being released, we can start to talk about some of the details we have solidified over the last couple months. The current version of Urgot is a pretty unique champion, a marksman tank hybrid. We like that about Urgot, and he is the kind of weird champion because of it, and we want to preserve that, but we also want to focus on its identity a little bit more. Once we got deep into ideation, we began to play around with the idea of a ranged juggernaut. After some initial iterations, the direction showed a lot of promise and opened up a very unique place in the juggernaut roster. Yes, by the way, they're also confirming with the leak that he does in fact have shotgun knees. I'm kind of excited for the Urgot rework on the grounds of, I called this back in January, the idea that they would make him a marksman that was also a juggernaut. And so to see that actually come to life, that will be pretty interesting to see implemented. So I'm actually very excited to see how that works. Speaking of Evelynn, by the way, not much to say about Evelynn that wasn't really said in the last, month's blog, except Evelynn should be more of a modernization rather than a complete reboot, similar to Warwick's VGU. Evelynn should still be the same sexy, stealthy assassin we all know and love, but with new tricks that allow her to function as an assassin she is meant to be in the modern League environment. Like all of her VGUs, Evelynn will also be getting some changes, or charming new visuals, and lore to go with the new gameplay tools we are giving her. She is still a little ways off, so expect more details once we get closer to her release. And then finally, the little bit of like a new champion teaser, you could say. It's not really a video or anything like that. It's just called A Shadow on the Horizon. We have a bunch of new champions in various stages of development. I'm not going to go over all the champions in production because of spoilers, but just the one that has been infesting my mind lately. A new carry champion that we think will perform well in the jungle. After Ivern, we want to try our hand at a more aggressive, damage-focused champion that should feel at home in the jungle. They will also be our first transformation champion since Gnar, but this take on transformation will be unlike any champion we have ever made. I don't want to say much more than that for now, but keep an eye out for more info soon. And so they do have an eye that looks like, it kind of looks maybe like a reptilian or something like that. I'm not entirely sure and don't want to speculate too much and give people the wrong ideas. But going over what we've talked about so far in this video, with Azir, I kind of agree with that. I kind of started playing a bit of Azir myself. It's why I played a lot of Victor, because when Victor and Azir were strong, I was trying to play both of them so that way I could be better as a mid laner. And Victor kind of just clicked more than Azir did, but I did like Azir like as a champion who he was, but I never really could get him to work. And then by the time I started getting him to work, he got nerfed a bunch and it was just like, okay, I really shouldn't be playing this champion anymore. But it does sound like they actually are going to go in a direction that will allow Azir to be picked up by average players, and as long as they, try and master him, be able to master him eventually, while also letting current Azir players be able to still be strong on the things Azir is strong on, I should say. So that's kind of exciting. I actually am a little bit looking forward to that because that is a champion I do wish I could be better on, and after these changes maybe that will be the thing, because he does do a lot of things that kind of cover up a lot of weaknesses, that if they can expose that, it also allows him to buff some of his strengths if he then turns out to be too weak, so that's a little bit exciting. When it comes to Urgot, I actually am an Urgot player. I've been playing Urgot. He was like the first champion that, I think he was actually the first champion I got a pentakill on in bots, as a matter of fact, when I was grinding IP to get Jinx back after I realized, oh, I don't get to keep Jinx forever. It was only from levels like 1 to 6, and now I gotta go and get her again. So it would be cool to see what they do with Urgot. I don't know if I'm entirely excited about it, because for those that know me, I haven't been the most happy with reworks and class updates in general, period. They've been mostly misses for me. I haven't really thought of any as a real success. I've seen a bunch of mechanics and stuff come in that have just made the game a lot more frustrating and annoying to play with, aka Cassiopeia's grounding. But as someone that Urgot does have like a place in my heart, I will say I will hold on to maybe this will be the one that turns it around for me. Maybe this will be the one that I like, because I think Urgot holds a unique space, and that's part of the reason I like playing him. And if they preserve that, then overall, I think that will actually be pretty fun. This will also be one of the first champions getting a rework that I kind of played a lot of prior to the rework. So if he does go from being like a bot lane range juggernaut to say a top laner, then that's another top lane champion that I can add to my top lane pool, which is a role that I'm not very good in. So I am a bit excited about that. And then when it comes to Evelynn, I haven't actually really played a lot of Evelynn, and so I can't actually sympathize with the problems Evelynn has, because I'm not going to sit here and say I've had like great godlike Evelynn games, but I guess some of the struggles Evelynn players have, I haven't had the time because I haven't played enough games on Evelynn to really feel the frustrations of, so it's not really my place to talk about on that, I don't think. And then finally, with this new champion, this new teaser coming out, this transformation ability, that ought to be interesting, because I wonder if it's going to be something like, if it's something like we haven't seen before, I wonder if it's literally going to be like transforming between two different champions, but not like Mini Gnar and Mega Gnar. I mean, maybe one champion is like a ranged champion, and you transform to another champion that's a melee champion, and maybe the melee champion has a lot of mobility, and the ranged champion, meanwhile, has like immobility as a weakness, and they're kind of like putting the two different kinds of main champions into one, main playstyles, so to say, as in range and melee. But I don't know, this is all kind of speculation in my opinion on some things, but the thing about my videos is these are discussions, so this is the part of the video where you can then discuss down below, have your own opinions and comments about what do you think about the topics we've talked about in today's video. Do you feel they're good? Do you feel they're bad? Is there something you're looking forward to? Is there something you actually hate that is in existence? But that is all for this video, so thank you so much for watching this far and for watching this video in general. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. but I don't know which video will be next because life will be quite a mess. So until next time, take care from the Fire Good Eye FS.